It's all right. National Memory Day is next Monday. We're one of the few countries that have a National Memory Day. We call it Memorial Day. And I've been thinking about all the things about memory. See, y'all, I've been a Methodist minister. I've been an Army chaplain. The great thing about the Army is when they know you're going to, so they let you know when you go home, called an MRD, Mandatory Removal Day. And so when I knew that was coming, I became a therapist and worked for SLED and SC Leap and some others. And today I work over in Lee County as a behavioral health officer for the Sheriff's Department. And so a lot of what I do is about memory, your memory, others' memories. And so when I ask people about how's your memory, they're like, man, I can't remember how my memory is. You tell me what is it you're remembering? And I think, gosh, we're starting to struggle. And for some of you, you're thinking, gosh, my memory's not so good. I can't remember what I did yesterday. But the fact is, most of you can remember a special kiss. That's right. Everybody smile. Yeah, except for you, sir. But anyway. So, and you might not remember where your keys are, but can't you all remember a special car? Memory is a unique thing, and yet to us, it has two primary things for us as human beings. The first is it gives us guidance, and the second is it gives us protection. Memory's primary focuses are guidance and protection. And so in what I do, which is go to tragic things, it becomes a pretty powerful part of my life and those that I serve. You know, when I was thinking about coming up here and I was thinking about all of my Army memories and things and about National Memory Day, Memorial Day, I was remembering when I first became an Army chaplain, and y'all, I loved doing it from the day one. I loved wearing a uniform. I loved being there. And so my very first experience as a first lieutenant was up at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, with a 8-inch howitzer field artillery group. And I was fascinated by it. Now, many of you may not remember. Does anyone here know what an 8-inch howitzer is? It's okay. Yeah, one, praise God. Not many people too. Thank you. So y'all, an 8-inch howitzer is a real basic weapon, and it's the most accurate of all the Army arsenal. They don't use it anymore. Vietnam War era weapon. And it's set on an open carriage, which meant there just tracks on either side, and you stood on top of it. And this is before all the digital stuff that you have in artillery today. And so what you do with it to shoot it is a pretty simple thing. You take a projectile, which is about 228 pounds, and you slide that, or a couple of guys do, it's huge. And behind it, you put a bag of gunpowder. Now, this day we were shooting white bag, which is the largest charge that you can put in an 8-inch howitzer, and it gives it a capability of hitting a deuce and a half about 20 some miles away. Not many things can do that. And even with the new stuff that's zeroed in, unless it has a laser on it, unless it's laser guided, it's hard for it to be that accurate. So I'm watching you shoot this thing. And as it's going along, one of them looked at me and said, "Chaplain, would you want to shoot the gun?" And I said, "Man, I would. I was born for this. This would be the best thing in my whole life." And so all the guys were excited, and I'm green as I can be, and I don't know what I'm doing. And so the mission's coming down. Now, in the old days in the Army, you didn't have all this digital stuff. People hollered at each other, and in field artillery, you were mostly dead. And so a lot of hollering going on. So the guys come around, they pitch me up on top of this howitzer, and the gun chief's right there with me. He says, "Sir, this is what we're going to do." He said, "We're going to put it in there, and I'm going to give you, do you know what you use to fire a howitzer? A lanyard, a rope. That's what it is." And he says, "I'm going to give you the lanyard." And he said, "What you're going to do is you're going to stand with your back to the gun, to the weapon. And when I point at you, you're going to have the lanyard across your knees, and you just turn to the side, off it'll go. He said, "Can you do it?" "Yes, sir." People had gathered round to see me shoot this thing. Missions coming down, people are screaming this, they're setting the coordinates on that. And it goes from the comm center ultimately to the gun chief, who looks at you and says, "Fire." It was coming down. This was a T on T. That's a time on target. It means everything shoots at the same time. As the mission's coming down, I'm ready. They load that thing up. I didn't know what a white bag would do. I didn't know that it was so violent that when it exploded, it literally could throw you off the gun. So I'm there, and the whole thing's happening, and they've locked the lanyard in, and I'm crouched down, and I'm ready. And as it's coming down, something goes wrong. Fire, fire, gets to this guy, and he says, "Check fire, check fire." And I am frozen. And about that time, a guy to my left said, "Chaplain?" And I said, "Huh?" It was such a great event that my commander came to see me, helped me off the weapon, and acted like he knew my mother. Yeah. Helped me off the weapon, talked to me for a while, demoted me and promoted me and did all kind of different things. And I didn't know how much fun it could be to clean the latrine until after that day. But I loved it because it gave me purpose and a place that was unique in this country. And so as we look at the Memory Day, Memorial Day, I just thought we might remember just for a little bit, no new news here, but just that we might remember what this means. Johnny's going to show us a clip.
My fellow Americans, Memorial Day is a day of ceremonies and speeches. Throughout America today, we honor the dead of our wars. We recall their valor and their sacrifices. We remember they gave their lives so that others might live. The unknown soldier who has returned to us today and whom we lay to rest is symbolic of all our missing sons. About him, we may well wonder, as others have. Did he marry? Did he have children? Did he look expectantly to return to a bride? We'll never know the answers to these questions about his life. We do know, though, why he died. He saw the horrors of war, but bravely faced them, certain his own cause and his country's cause was a noble one, that he was fighting for human dignity, for free men everywhere. Let us, if we must, debate the lessons learned at some other time. Today, we simply say with pride, thank you, dear son. May God cradle you in his loving arms.
Isn't that precious? When did Memorial Day start? Or what do you remember when you remember Memorial Day? Does it mean anything to you? So my dad was in the Navy, World War II. My uncle was in the Bataan Death March. My grandfather on my mother's side at 17 was in France in World War I. And so being in the military is a part of my family. And my youngest son, Will, is a soldier right now. Now, so I was interested to say, Will, what does Memorial Day mean to you? Now, Will's a smart guy. He's going to medical school, we think, if Sue can sneak him in through the hospital somehow. And and Will thought it was a test, and he began to pull up all the things like all good medical students do. And he said, Daddy, I'm just not real sure. And I thought, what do we remember? What does it mean? Well, to most of us, it means, of course, that the summer's going to start. And to most of us, it means it's a 3-day weekend before the summer starts. And many of our lives in this community set an awful lot of what we do around Memorial Day, but not for the reason that we have it. And so you may not know, does anybody know when it became a federal holiday, Memorial Day? Extra credit and go home. Anybody? You're exactly right. 1971. That's how late it was. But the first one, of course, Memorial Day comes to us after the Civil War. The war where we lost more Americans than at any other time. So in the 1800s, the Civil War has come and gone, and the nation has lost how many folks? What do you guess? What do you remember? I still, when I read it, 318,000 people in the Civil War. Not 300, not 3,000, 318,000. Of that, 318,000, let me see, 318, that's not right, 518,000. 360 were Union soldiers, 258 were Confederate. 2% of the population was destroyed and dead. So after this tragedy, in 1868, General John Logan, he was just a guy up north, and he's not famous for anything except starting this. They had noticed what the Southern folks were doing for their dead. And the truth is, there's a lot of controversy about it. But one of the things they had really noticed was what the folks were doing in Charleston, South Carolina. The enslaved people who were part of this were having this remembrance of those that they had died. I remember that because when I was working for SLED and SC Lee, I was there when Mother Emanuel happened. I was there for like, 2 or 3 months. So, yeah. But John Logan, they noticed this, and finally they went out and they decided that they would have a day and they would put flowers on the graves of those they had lost. And so it was that we began to have Memorial Day. And so now Memorial Day is always the last Monday in May. And do you know what when the time of remembrance is on Memorial Day? Yes, so for 1 minute at 3 o'clock at 1500 hours, every American is asked to stop and remember. Now, I've been a part of a lot of Memorial Days, and I've not watched many people stop at 3 o'clock at 1500 and say, gosh, what happened here? And as someone who has buried a lot of soldiers and greeted a lot of soldiers and been with those who died as soldiers, it's so powerful for me. I remember that of the 42 million that have served this country, 42 million, that we've had about 1 million folks who've gone the full distance and given their lives, and another 1.5 million who've been wounded. And when I think about all of that, I think about how tragic some of that is. And yet, as a soldier for 20 some years, I remember most of all of the billions of people that are better today, that live free, that live better because your ancestors and mine, because your mothers, brothers, fathers, uncles, all of those folks, neighbors, said, I'll go and serve. And to those folks, it's worth remembering. To those folks, it's worth saying that this is important. And so I want to invite you to remember some things on this particular Memorial Day. Just a few things, and then we're going to show another video, and I'm going to read something. I want to remind you of some other things that are true on Memorial Day that you might remember this coming Monday at 3 o'clock, if you can. First thing I want to invite you to remember is not just the individual cost of the person that we lost. There's the collective cost of that family and that community that goes on and on and on. I know of the experience personally to go. Sue and I were talking about it last night. I have 25 or more death notifications, and that's a tough thing to go to. Where you arrive in the Army, we do it in pairs. We do it with a chaplain and a person of equal or greater rank. And I know what it's like when they come to the door and they see you there because you're in your full uniform. And it's pressed and together, and no one else knows that you're coming. In theater, when a soldier or sailor, airman, or Marine dies, what they do is they stop all comms right there. Boom. It's shut down. That's hard to do today. But in those days, pretty easy to do. And so you have a certain amount of time to get to that home, to get to that family, to walk up there and say, on behalf of the President of the United States, we're sorry. And all the responses that I've had walking up, most people know why you're there when you get there. And so I just invite you to remember, it's not just the soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine that we lost. It's also that child that's affected. It's that mom or dad that still wake up every day and hope they're going to get a phone call. It's that wife that remarries but never really feels okay about doing it because there's something lost. And in some cases, they're girlfriends. I don't even want to tell you about them. Yeah, that's right, because we're just people. And but it's a collective cost. And so for this one person that does that goes that mile, that extraordinary mile, there are many, many more that are affected. And our country pays that cost. Secondly, I want to remind you that there's a very thin line between life and death in combat. There's a very thin line. And most of the time, so I've been deployed a number of times, and most of the time that those kind of things were happening, you don't realize just how dangerous it was until you look back and you say, oh my goodness, what happened there? And then you begin to think, that could be me. It's a dangerous business for everyone there. And sometimes we manage that with silence. Sometimes we manage that with some bad humor. Sometimes we withdraw because we think nobody else can really understand that. And for years, that was part of my treatment. And when Sue was showing those pictures, I'm afraid I teared up back there in the back, just because I was in the places where those guys died. And it's still tough for me today. And I get sad, but I'm okay, and I'll get over it. But it cuts a place in your heart that lasts forever. Mostly because those are the same places you have stood. Soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, firefighters, police officers, and EMS also have that same experience today. And then the third thing I want to mention to you quickly is there's untold joy in this service. There's untold joy in this service. So what you might not know is that Sue decided we'd have one more child. I was there, I think. But anyway, we're going to have another child. Okay. I think I was in Fort Stewart about to deploy. And she says that, hey, they're going to be twins. And I'm like, we must have a bad connection here. We already got 3 we're paying for, you know, and Lord knows others that have populated parts of the state. And I said, twins? Gonna be twins, Will and Graham. And she mostly raised those sons. She mostly did that. And in the missing of them and all of that, I still had some of the most profound times of my life. I was with the Attorney General of South Carolina, Alan Wilson, and Scott Bell. We were crossing a big old ditch and headed to a latrine. We were covered in dirt and stuff, and we're making funny jokes about something that had just happened to us, and we're griping about stuff. And I looked at him and I said, you know, this is the best time of our lives. And today we still remember that. It's one of the things we say immediately. And I remember the funny things in theater as well as the sad. But mostly I remember that when it comes up about serving this country and about doing the things that are necessary, that my children know that I was there and that I went in their behalf and that I'd go again. Mainly because Sue would tell me to go again, I think. However, I would certainly do it again. But I want you to remember those things, that it's not just the individual. I want you to remember that there are people who have served today who still struggle because the distance between life and death was very, very short. And the third thing is that although we miss them, there's extraordinary blessing in serving. Johnny's going to play us one more video, and then I'm going to close. Mike, come around here and speak to a little bit. There's a song by Marta King. There's some South Carolina soul group in this video. When we were first in the war, that's how we took a shower. Forward operating base. Can't get the port. Hard to find a place to stick the 864s. The 847. Most places we fight are very we are rocking that's the easiest way to move all. I think these guys are in jail. Only the Army do you sell them. Isn't that classic? Whoever comes. Bond between people that are forever. Early in the war, you see from the uniform. Medical people are important. Just off their first goal. Sometimes it's so sad. Hear the words of the song. Find me not happy. Do not decline. Let me find my call.
I'll return.
And I'll be homeward bound. So not everybody that serves believes they'll be homeward bound. But I've given much of my life believing that they are.
Charles, South Carolina. Sergeant Stephen High, 45 of Spartanburg. He's a signal brigade guy. He was killed when he was in a CH-47 helicopter that crashed in Afghanistan. He had married 2 weeks before he left. Crystal Stout was 23. She was seated right beside him. She was killed the same day, April the 6th, 2005, in that same CH-47. Staff Sergeant James Bullard, who was 28 years old, married. When I went to his house, his children held me because they thought at first they thought I was their dad. He died in mortar wounds on October the 30th, 2007. Sergeant Edward Philpott, 38 of Little Lava. He was killed when his Humvee, they were just on a mission, and a convoy rolled over in one of the trenches and they could not retrieve him. And he was upside down in that hill. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait, you're good. Keep going.
And I'm out of time. I want to. Edward Philpott. Staff Sergeant Sean Hill, who was an upstate athletic legend of Wilford, had a wife and 3 young children, and he killed when his vehicle hit an IED. Sergeant David Leimbach of Taylor's was in the 1st Battalion 118th Infantry, and he was killed with a rocket-propelled grenade. Staff Sergeant Willie Harley, 48 of Aiken, great guy. He died on October the 1st in Palatka, Afghanistan. His military vehicle was hit with an IED. Sergeant Luther Raven, 32 years old. He was in the engineer clearance company, which is one of the most dangerous things you can do, is to clear the field. His also was hit by an IED. Staff Sergeant David Metter, 36, 133rd Military Police Company. He was a cop. Died on June 20th, 2012, in the Coast Province of Afghanistan. They were there a little long in this area, and someone walked in on them with an explosive vest. First Lieutenant Ryan Rawls, 30 of Lexington. It was his casket that I was kneeling in front of. That started the tradition of chaplains kneeling when the body returned to home. Ryan Rawls died the same June the 20th in that same explosion. And lastly, Sergeant First Class Brad Thomas of Travelers Rest, with the same group at the same time. We remember them. Let us pray. Holy God, help us to remember that which is important. Help us to remember those who said yes to you and your call. Help us to love them and celebrate them and hold them and their families in our prayers and hearts forever. For this we ask in your name and for your sake. Amen. Thank y'all for letting me come.
Thank you so much, Steve, for that powerful message. As a thank you, we will make a donation to the Kershaw County Children's Library in your honor, but thank you for your service. Do we have any other announcements? I do have this, Kim. I'm not forgotten. Don't forget those blue buckets, y'all. We need to remember the CART fund. So if you can, donate to that. Any other announcements? If you're able, let's stand and recite the four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? If there's nothing else for the good of Rotary, we are adjourned.